Good afternoon, everybody. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE and a special State of the Cavaliers edition today on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Chris, when you look at this roster, as we are past Christmas, approaching New Year, kind of the middle of the NBA season coming up, what do you see from it? Normally, you ideally think if you have a big three, the quote-unquote big three, you're in pretty good shape. You could make a case that the Cavs have put together a big four, if you will. You've got Garland, Mitchell, Allen, Mobley, and I'm leaving guys out still.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the year, Dave, the Cavs were one of two teams in the NBA that had 3 All-Stars on their roster. Golden State was the other one, and Golden State's the reigning NBA champions. So that tells you all you need to know about the upper echelon talent that the Cavs have, and that doesn't even include second-year phenom Evan Mobley, who many people inside the organization and around the NBA believe one day is going to be the most talented and best and most important player that the Cavs have in this organization. In fact, one assistant coach, Greg Buckner, told me before the season even started, if we're going to hang another banner, Evan Mobley needs to be our LeBron James. It can't be Darius Garland's team. It can't be Donovan Mitchell's team. It can't be Jarrett Allen's team. If we're going to hang another championship banner, it needs to eventually be Evan Mobley's team. He's the one who's going to have to be the most important guy for us into the future. That's obviously not right now, but that tells you all you need to know about the talent level on this team. Look, there are holes on this roster. There's no doubt about it. JB Bickerstaff only plays 8-9 guys most nights, so they're not the deepest team in the NBA. And that wing spot, the small forward spot, continues to be a problem. This is a league about two-way wings. Those are the guys that shift playoff series. Those are the guys that typically lead teams to championships. And that's the biggest weakness that the Cavs have. So if you want to poke holes in this roster and start nitpicking, you would start there at the starting small forward spot.
Okay, having said that, though, what about the talent? It wasn't too long ago where people were calling, wow, did Kobe Altman make the right choice with this guy? Did Kobe Altman, Colin Sexton? And there was a good job of identifying talent relative to where you were picking. You'd have to agree with that.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think if you can go back to 2018, 2019, 2020, all those different drafts, right? And you just say, like, honestly, based on where the Cavs were, what they needed, and what they already had on the roster, who would you rather have instead of Colin Sexton, right? Who would you rather have instead of Darius Garland? So if you looked at it that kind of way, you would see that Kobe Altman made the best pick at the position where he was drafting. The one that stands out, obviously, is Isaac Okoro in 2020. People will talk about Tyrese Halliburton. They'll talk about some of these other guys that were drafted after Isaac, maybe even Denny Avdia of the Washington Wizards. But for the most part, based on where the Cavs were picking, despite the fact that they didn't have a ton of lottery luck early on in this rebuild, they hit those picks. And part of the reason why they were able to get somebody like Donovan Mitchell is because they hit on Ochai Agbaji. That was somebody that appealed to the Utah Jazz. Part of the reason why they were able to get somebody like Donovan Mitchell is because they hit on Colin Sexton, and Colin Sexton became an asset that the Jazz wanted, and because they were able to acquire Lauri Markkanen and sign and trade for Larry Nance Jr. So I've been somebody who has backed Kobe Altman for a very, very long time, because I think early on in a rebuild, Dave, you have to look at it and you have to evaluate it independent of the end result. Because an end result in the NBA, a win-loss record in the NBA, is the totality of what you have. It's you against the other teams that you're playing against. And the Cavs weren't ready for that level of evaluation early on in the rebuild. They weren't ready to be judged simply by wins and losses. It was about the individual moves that allowed them to get to this point where they are. And you see, based on where they are right now, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, one of the best teams in the NBA, a legitimate title contender, those moves that the Cavs made early on in the rebuild, while they didn't add up to wins then, are adding up to them now because they've grown into that.
Well, the one move you didn't mention was maybe the most impressive is finding a way to get Jared Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, there are people inside this organization that believe their rebuild started to shift when they acquired Jared Allen. Like, that was the move that sent them on this upward trajectory. And look, like, there are layers to the Jared Allen move. If you start doing the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever you want to do with that, right? Because the Cavs, in that same Jared Allen deal, Dave, they acquired Taurean Prince, and they flipped Taurean Prince for Ricky Rubio, and they flipped Ricky Rubio for Karis LeVert, and then got Ricky Rubio back. So when you start looking at it that kind of way and all the dominoes that came after it, that's the thing. In the NBA, Dave, trades, they're chess moves. It's not about the move that you make. It's about the other moves that come from that. You can go back to the Kyrie Irving blockbuster and the way that that's impacted this organization and where they are right now. It's a chess move. And if you look at it that kind of way, you can see the plan come into focus, and you can see the other moves that the Cavs have benefited from after that.
The other thing is J.B. Bickerstaff appears to be the perfect guy for a young team. Talk about the job he's done with this group that is really young still.
Dave, I think he's done a terrific job, and I think there are things that we're still learning about J.B. Bickerstaff, and there's things that people are going to nitpick. His rotation is too short in the regular season. He plays his guys too many minutes. His in-game adjustments need to be better. He needs to handle timeout situations better. The Cavs schematically aren't the most creative offense in the world. Like, all those things are well and good, but like, for this team, they need somebody who's going to manage personalities. They need somebody who's going to communicate with them in a way that's going to get these young guys to follow. He's the kind of guy who has set a culture, and that's what this young group needed. And we're still going to learn a lot about J.B. Bickerstaff as an X's and O's guy as the season goes on and as he gets into a 7-game playoff series. But for this group, he gets them to play hard. He has gotten them to buy in. They are one of the most competitive teams in the NBA. And oh, by the way, they're also number 1 in defensive rating. And JB has always been known as a defense-first coach. And he's gotten them to buy in to that kind of style. It can be ugly at times. It can be grimy. It can be nasty. But it's about winning games. And he has found the formula that works for this group. And he has gotten them all to believe that they can compete with Milwaukee, that they can compete with Boston, that they can compete with the Phoenix Suns. And he's done all of this, Dave, while using 16 different starting lineups to start the year because of illness, because of injury, and because he's trying to find the right mix and match and the blend with all these different players.
And by the way, they're also one of the youngest teams using those 16 different lineups. Well, last week they finally beat the Bucks and beat them pretty convincingly. Donovan Mitchell, J.B. Bickerstaff talked about that game and kind of what it did for a mindset.
I think it's night and day. You know, I think you look at the first 2 games we played. They set the tone in the second half, and I think we were able to do that this game. You know, I think whether it was on the shots weren't falling or we getting stops, you know, shots are falling and we're continuously getting stops. And we gave up some different looks, you know, but at the end of the day, how do you respond? They cut it to 8, cut it to 9 or 8. You know, we responded right back to put it up to 18. Like that's the testament of a team that wants to win and continue to grow. And now he's got to continuously do it and be consistent. And, you know, we look at nights like tonight, we'll see these games continuously. But when you get later in the season, you look at nights like this, and, you know, all right, this is what we can be. This is what we've done. You know, we've shown we can do it, and we just got to continue to be consistent.
I'm hopeful we got more in the tank. You know, I thought we played well. Again, you know, the third quarter, our defense, I thought we gave up a little too much. But, you know, it's a step in the right direction, and our job is to continue to improve. And I hope that this isn't our best game of the season because we do have room to grow, and I expect us to continue to grow.
And Chris, so they've beat the Bucks. They did lose to them twice earlier. They beat the Bucks. They beat the Celtics twice. What's that do for a young team? Just, until you do it, you always think you can do it. Now you can, as Donovan Mitchell said, they've proven they can do it.
That's the thing about it, Dave. If you think about the teams that the Cavs are going to be competing with as we go down the stretch and into the playoffs, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Boston, Milwaukee. The advantage that all of those teams have over the Cavs is that they've done it before. They've been there, they've done it. They've felt what a playoff environment is like. They've thrived in a playoff environment before. They know what to expect. They've seen it. The Cavs haven't, for the most part. I mean, if you think about it, none of these guys, except for Kevin Love, has gone deep into the playoffs in their career. And many of these guys haven't even experienced the playoffs. So that's something that the Cavs can't do anything about. But when you play games against a team like Milwaukee, or you go on the road against the Boston Celtics, and you're tested in a different kind of way, and you're feeling that pressure, and Milwaukee is coming from behind, and they cut the lead to 5, and you have to withstand that. You have to stand your ground. You have to find a way to come together as a team and avoid another second half collapse. That, to me, was what was so significant about the most recent win against the Bucks. Because the first 2 games against Milwaukee, when Milwaukee cranked it up to a different kind of level, a playoff intensity level, the Cavs could not respond. They had no answer for that. But if you think about this most recent one, when the Bucks kept coming, the Cavs responded every single time. And to me, that shows a young team that is starting to grow up. And these kinds of games, these kinds of experiences are going to be so beneficial for them in April, May, and June. There's no replicating playoff intensity, not in the regular season. We understand it's a different animal, but these kinds of things certainly help that growth process.
Without question. What have you seen from, the big question was how are Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland going to play together? What have you seen as that's kind of developed and evolved?
It's not where it's going to be at the end of the season, and I don't think it should be where it's going to be at the end of the season. The goal is to be at their best and have it figured out and being the best version of themselves while allowing that to be the best version of the Cavs by March, April, May, and June. There are growing pains. There's no doubt about it. But they both want it to work. And that's the thing. I've talked to both Darius and Donovan about this, about building chemistry on the court and off the court. And they call it a brotherly bond that they're building. Darius looks at Donovan as a big brother, and Donovan looks at Darius as a little brother, and they hang out outside of the game. They go to basketball events. They go to Browns games together. They go out to dinners on the road together. So they're trying to build that chemistry and get to know each other and have that level of communication so that it transfers over to the court. Stylistically, there are some conflicts that continue to be worked through, but I don't think it's something that can't work at the highest level. I think their games are different enough. I think Darius can play off the ball. I think Donovan can play off the ball while also being great when it comes to running the pick and roll. So I think their games are different enough, and I think they both are motivated by the same thing. They want to win. It's a very, very agenda-free style that they both bring to the table, and I think once they have more time together, more reps together, and more experience together, you're going to see Darius looking like an all-star, and you're going to see Donovan looking like an all-star, and those two guys together are going to form what I think is going to be a very, very formidable pairing, especially in a 7-game series, because not all the eyes can be focused on Donovan. Not all the eyes can be focused on Darius. And it's a different level of attack that the Cavs can have this year as opposed to last year in the play-in tournament.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. If they figure it out like I think they can and like it sounds like you think they can, that's going to be a team you don't want to see in a 7-game series. Yeah. It really is.
I mean, most teams are set up where they have like one elite stopper type defensive player, and that guy would go on Donovan Mitchell, right? Or that guy would go on Darius Garland. But that guy can't go on Darius and Donovan together. So it just frees up the Cavs to have a different level of offensive attack. If you think about last year, especially in the play-in tournament, Atlanta sent 2 guys at Darius Garland repeatedly because they're like, the other guys aren't going to beat us. And Brooklyn just shaded off Isaac Okoro and used that defender. It was Seth Curry, who was playing on one leg, basically, as the guy who was deterring Darius from going to the basket. They just sent different bodies at him. And teams aren't going to be able to approach it the same kind of way. And Donovan's used to seeing that kind of attention as well. Think about his playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks, where it was, in his own words, his worst performance in his entire career. A big part of what Dallas did cannot be done because he's playing alongside somebody just as dynamic as Darius Garland. So I'm really, really excited to see it when the game slows down, when it's about matchups, when it's about highlighting your strengths and exploiting weaknesses. There aren't many that the opponent can exploit in terms of the weakness column when it comes to the Cavs because of Darius and Donovan together.
Before we take a quick break, what about Evan Mobley in year two? You mentioned, how highly he's thought of. It seems like he kind of morphs into what they need at any given time. And that's as a guy that's 19, 20 years old.
He's been awesome. And I don't care if people don't think it's been this massive jump that Evan Mobley has had in year two, because his counting numbers, the points, the rebounds, the assists, the blocks, all that stuff is very, very similar to him as a rookie. I don't care that he's only averaging 15 and 9 so far this year. The impact that he has on this team on a possession-to-possession basis and a night-to-night basis is unquantifiable. That doesn't show up always in the box score. And that's one of the things that I think separates Evan Mobley. There are some of these young players that do it in the points and the rebounds and the assists and all that kind of stuff. What Evan Mobley does translates to winning basketball. And it doesn't always show up in the box score. And you have to watch him on a nightly basis to really appreciate his greatness. Even in year two, he is making a considerable impact on the team's defense. They're number one in defense in the NBA. And a big part of that, Dave, is because they have 2 7-footers. A lot of teams have a 7-footer. He might be mobile, might be athletic, protect the rim. The Cavs have 2 of them. So Evan together with Jarrett makes them unique, makes them special. And Evan's a big part of that. If they didn't have him and it was Dean Wade at the 4 or Kevin Love at the 4, the Cavs simply could not operate the same way that they do defensively, and they wouldn't be as special defensively as they are. So to me, Evan Mobley has made a leap. He's more comfortable offensively. He's showing more in his offensive arsenal. He looks more comfortable on the defensive end with where he's going to be playing alongside Jarrett Allen. And his impact is felt on every single possession of the game.
I agree with you. I think he is a guy that understands what the team needs from him in any given situation to help him win. And to think he's as young as he is and he's only in his second year, I'm with you. That's a special kind of player. Chris Fedor and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from a national pundit who thinks the Cavs are legitimate contenders. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs, the state of the Cavs here on Sports4CLE. Kirk Goldsberry, former VP of Strategic Planning and Research for the Spurs, as well as the lead analyst for USA Basketball, Talked about the Cavs and what he's seen, why he likes this team.
Yeah, I've loved them going back to last year, actually, when their defensive markers started to jump off the page. But when they added Donovan, I was kind of skeptical that they could get it to work. Credit to him and everybody else involved that has work. There's the good news right now with them is they're number one in pro basketball in the NBA in net rating, which is arguably the most important telling statistic. We're deep enough into the year where that tells me something. The thing I'm watching with them is they're going to be great on defense, which is why I've always loved them. Their offense is slipping a little bit. And if there's one number on offense that I'm worried about, Brian, it goes back to your point about the roster. It's the three-point shooting number. It was unsustainably high at the beginning of the year. They came out scorching. But in December, I think they ranked 26th in the NBA in both three-point percentage and three-point makes per game. That's not going to cut it. I know you have talked about specifically a limitation on the wing there. I kind of agree. I think this team can start to look at three-point shooting as a target in any personnel moves that they're thinking of to get better, particularly on offense. The defense is going to be great. It might end up being the number one defense in the league. The question for me is, how can they get back to above average in that three-point shooting category, Brian?
So Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Is that kind of what you were getting at, a fair point, fair question there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, teams that compete for championships, Dave, typically don't start guys like Isaac Okoro, Lamar Stevens, Dean Wade at the small forward spot. I mean, that's occupied by Jason Tatum and LeBron James and Brandon Ingram, and you can just keep going down the list. And the problem is that many of those guys that the Cavs put on the court, it's an either-or proposition, right? If you're going with Dean Wade, that's probably the best blend of offense and defense, right? He can shoot from the outside, he can space the floor, and he's held his own on the defensive end as well. But with Lamar Stevens, yeah, you're getting the toughness, you're getting the defense, you're getting all those things that you love about Lamar Stevens, why J.B. Bickerstaff put him in the starting lineup. But he's not as much of an offensive threat. He doesn't have a consistently reliable three-point shot. And Isaac Okoro, we know the story there. Teams just ignore him on the defensive end of the floor. His guy is usually hovered very, very close to the paint, and he gets more open looks than any other player in the NBA from three-point range. And that just restricts your offense, right? And the spacing isn't the same with him on the floor as it is with someone else that would be a more reliable three-point threat. So as the trade deadline rolls around, that's something that the Cavs are going to be looking for, because the more shooting, the more spacing you can have, the better it's going to be for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. The floor is going to open up for Jarrett Allen. So that's something that the Cavs really have to look into. It's something that they've been looking into for the last 2.5 years. The problem is their biggest weakness is the most difficult one in the NBA to fill. Like 3-and-D wings that can give you a little bit of offense and a little bit of defense and not be missing one of those components are very, very pricey, aren't usually available because they're so valuable to the team that has them. And the Cavs used basically all of their draft capital to get Donovan Mitchell here. So the asset cupboard is a little bit bare at this point in time.
Is there anyone that makes sense that, you know, might not be a perfect fit, but gives you because again, you don't need an elite guy. You need a guy that is going to, like you said, you got to go cover him so that it opens the floor for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of names out there. Some of this is difficult right now because a lot of teams feel like they have a chance, right? Like Boston has shown flaws recently. Milwaukee has shown flaws recently. The Cavs as well. Phoenix, Golden State has taken a big, big tumble. So I think because you don't have that team that stands out above the rest, you have some of these other teams around the NBA saying, hey, we got a shot. Like, we don't have to become sellers. Just get us into the playoffs and let's see what happens. For the last couple of years, the name that has been linked to the Cavs and every other team around the NBA is Harrison Barnes of the Sacramento Kings. And I agree, he would be a really good fit for the Cavs. Number one, I don't think they have enough to get him. And number two, Sacramento is chasing a playoff spot. They haven't been to the playoffs in nearly 2 decades. And now they're right there in the thick of the playoff race in the Western Conference because of the way things have fallen. So I think you can eliminate him, not to mention the price tag would be too high for that kind of player. But I think you can look at Bojan Bogdanovic. The Pistons aren't going anywhere. Anybody really that is older, that has some experience from the Houston Rockets, Eric Gordon comes to mind there. Terrence Ross is a name from the Orlando Magic, but I've heard the Cavs have no interest in him. Jay Crowder is available from the Phoenix Suns, but I'm told that the Cavs don't want to experience that again. They had enough of that once already. Kelly Oubre Jr. of the Charlotte Hornets is a name to keep your eye on. But as I said, because the Cavs gave up what they did for Donovan Mitchell, there is not a first-round pick that they can offer any team around the time of the trade deadline. By rule, they cannot. They can try and change the protections on the pick, and they can try and work with these other teams and whatnot, and maybe throw in a couple of second-rounders. But in terms of first-round picks, the Cavs cannot offer a single one at the trade deadline by rule.
So it would involve probably giving up a piece, either a Coro or Levert or somebody like that, to get the kind of guy that would be an upgrade, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think any conversation around the NBA with the Cavs, obviously teams are going to say, hey, what's it going to take to get Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland? And the Cavs are going to hang up the phone very, very quickly. But of the attainable pieces, the realistic pieces, it starts with Caris LeVert. I've talked to many people around the NBA that feel like he has value because he can help a team right now and because he's on an expiring contract that's going to help some team shed some salary cap space. The Dallas Mavericks are a team to watch. They've got Tim Hardaway Jr. I know the Cavs would have interest in him. They've got Dorian Finney-Smith. They were a team that got to the conference finals last year, but they haven't backed that up this year. They might be looking for a different style player, somebody to take some of the ball handling pressure off of Luka Doncic. Maybe Caris LeVert makes some sense. You sweeten it up a little bit with Isaac Okoro, or you sweeten it up a little bit with a future second-round pick or two. And the other name to watch is Cedi Osman as well. He's still young enough where teams feel like there might be more to pull out of him, and he has a descending team-friendly contract. So those would be the 3 names that I think would come up the most if you're talking about the Cavs trying to upgrade that wing spot.
What about the job Kevin Love has done? Last year he really got things rolling again. He just seems to be a guy that, if Mobley's in foul trouble, he comes in and he plays defense and he can score. If everybody's scoring, he just rebounds in double figures. He does whatever, and I'm getting back to this, kind of like Mobley, does whatever the team needs him to do to win.
I think the greatest value that Kevin has brought is behind the scenes, to be perfectly honest with you. He's mature. He's a veteran. He's been there, done that. He knows what it takes to be in the playoffs. He knows what a playoff team looks like. And the biggest thing to me, Dave, is just the level of respect that the younger guys have for Kevin and what he's accomplished in the game. He helps set the tone with leadership that kind of way. And he's had moments of immaturity, in his own words, childish behavior in the past, but we haven't seen those recently since the Cavs started turning the corner. So I think he's become a really, really important piece of what the Cavs are doing here. He's one of the most respected voices in that locker room. He has one of the loudest voices in that locker room when he needs to, and he helps set the tone with his professionalism and his attitude. And if you go back to last year, like a big reason why the Cavs had that togetherness that they did is because Kevin Love, future Hall of Famer, NBA champion, 5-time All-Star, was willing to take a step back and pass the torch to Evan Mobley. JB Bickerstaff decided to bring him off the bench in a 6-man role, and Kevin didn't complain. He took that, he said, yes, I'll do what's best for the team. And when you have a guy like that and Ricky Rubio willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the team and willing to come off the bench for the betterment of the team, what's anybody else going to say, right? Like, that level of sacrifice is at the core of what the Cavs have become. That level of togetherness is at the core of what the Cavs have become.
So what's a realistic goal for the Cavs as we look forward? Is it, the top seed in the East? Is it a first-round home game series? What's realistic given where this team is right now?
That's the thing. I think the key point is given where this team is right now, because this is not championship or bust. This is not a championship or bust style roster, right? They're not deep into the luxury tax paying like the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets and some of these other teams. They don't have these guys on expiring contracts where you're thinking, well, if we don't do it this year, it's not going to happen because X player is going to be gone off the roster, or because we're going to have to overspend to keep X player on the roster. This is a team that can still grow organically. But at this point, based on what they've accomplished and the fact that they're number one in the NBA in net rating, and they've got the number one defense in the NBA, and they're borderline top 10 in offense, like, if you just did blind resume and you took out all the other ancillary factors, including their age, including their experience, all those things that we've talked about, Dave, if you just did blind resume, you would look at that resume and you would say, that team can compete for a championship. And the thing that I keep going back to is, why can't the Cavs compete for a championship? Why shouldn't they be considered a contender? All of the metrics point to them being a contender, and there's no team hovering like the dominant Golden State Warriors of the LeBron years that is going to be that much better than them when they get into a 7-game series. Like, yes, I think Boston and Milwaukee would be favored in those series, and I think they've earned that. And I think they have things on their side that the Cavs simply don't. But, like, is Boston infallible? No, I don't think so. They just lost to Orlando twice, and they're trying to figure out where their offense went on the West Coast trip. And Milwaukee has some issues. Chris Middleton's played like 7 games so far. He had off-season wrist surgery. Now he's dealing with a knee issue, and he hasn't been the same player. And they lost PJ Tucker, so they've got some holes on that roster as well. So, yeah, I think both those teams are better than the Cavs. But I think they belong in that same conversation based on what they've shown throughout the course of this year. And I think the Cavs are going to get better as the season goes on, as they figure it out more.
I would agree. And the one thing is, don't forget the Cavs' home record, one of the best in the NBA. So if you get a home series and a team has to beat you on this floor, that's going to be tough.
Dave, you know how many games they've lost at home with Donovan Mitchell in the lineup?
Probably 0.
0. They have yet to lose at home with Donovan Mitchell in the lineup. So even that home record, which is brilliant, 16-2, there are even circumstances attached to that has caused those 2 losses.
Chris Fedor, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Chris.
You got it, man. Anytime.
All right, Chris Fedor, make sure you check him out. Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We continue here on Sports4CLE with our special State of the Cavaliers. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Straight ahead, Sports4CLE will be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking the state of the Cavs here on Sports4CLE, a special edition. ESPN's Freddie Coleman talked about the top players in the NBA, and he had the Cavs' Donovan Mitchell in the top 10.
I had Donovan Mitchell at number 8. Donovan Mitchell has been unbelievably good. I knew he was going to be terrific with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't think anybody expected this, where they have the third best record in the NBA, because we've seen Spider put the venom on people night in and night out, and he just feels reborn. Whatever happened in Utah, him and Rudy Gobert, there was an article about him that just weighed him down. He feels free. He feels unleashed. That Cavaliers team is going to be a lot better in the Eastern Conference. So I had him at number 7. And I wanted to put LeBron James there, but here's why I got LeBron James at number 8 right now, dominant. The Lakers are wasting him, because they have been able to sell their soul for a championship, and now they can't put pieces around him.
Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. So, Sam, Freddie Coleman knows the NBA pretty well, has Donovan Mitchell, 7th best player in the league, a spot ahead of LeBron James. You think that's accurate? You think that's fair?
Yeah, I wrote earlier this season, after the Cavs beat the Lakers the second time, the Cavs now have a player who, at this moment in time, is a better player than LeBron. Obviously, LeBron's age has factored into that, but it's also because of the way Mitchell has risen to become, as we just heard Freddie Coleman say, has become an even better, more relaxed, more comfortable player this season with his new team. Last year was still very good in Utah, was an all-star, but in Cleveland just really seems to have stepped it up a little bit as he's, it's just a lot of it, I'm sure, is kind of the mental and emotional relief of being with a team that he feels more comfortable with, teammates that he's more comfortable with, and a situation when you really look at Donovan Mitchell's career in Utah. Well, these current Cavaliers are probably almost definitely the best group of teammates he's played with in the NBA. So, and he had some nice teammates in Utah, but I just think that these guys, the Jared Allens, Evan Mobleys, especially the Darius Garlands, those guys really enable him to take it up another notch, because not only are they able to get it done now, but their future together is so promising.
Are you at all surprised how well he fit in? And again, I follow the NBA, and I knew Donovan Mitchell. I knew him to be a good player. But, I mean, there have been a couple nights this year where he hasn't had it. But night in and night out, he is definitely one of the top players in the league.
I will say that, yes, I'm a little surprised that he's been this good this quickly in a new situation. Hasn't really needed any time to adjust. And you think about last year, the Cavs were pretty good when healthy. They were a top 5-6 team in the Eastern Conference when healthy, without Donovan Mitchell, without Colin Sexton, who was one of the guys they traded to get Mitchell. We're still pretty good. So in theory, you add Mitchell to this team and you think, well, this is going to be questionable because he's a guy who dominates the ball. At least you were thinking that when he came to Cleveland. There were some questions about it, but yeah, that has not been the case. He answered all those quickly. He does deliver every night. A down game for him is a game where he just doesn't dominate. When you think about the course of an 82-game season, that's pretty tough to do for any superstar. But you do those the majority of nights, which is what Donovan Mitchell has done from day one. Yeah, that's a little bit surprising, just because nothing against him or his previous accomplishments, but you just put anybody in a new situation in any job anywhere, and it seems like it should take a little time to adjust. With him, that was not the case at all. And that makes it a little bit of a surprise.
So Ricky Rubio keeps getting closer and closer to coming back. What does he add? What do you think he will add? And how important can he be? Because, again, this is still a young team. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is even young. But what can Ricky Rubio bring to this group?
The hope is that he brings what he brought last season, right, which is leadership more than anything. When he's on the court, you know, things can get a little wild sometimes. Things can get a little out of sorts offensively. Just sometimes, well, he kind of erases that factor. He's just, you know, the consummate pro. He's been a very good fit when he was healthy last season with this group. And that counts more than anything when you're talking about a veteran player who controls the ball. You know, his job is to control and run the offense 90% of the time. Sometimes they'll move him over to shooting guard, but the majority of the time, he's the quarterback out there. And a lot of times that, you know, if Darius Garland stays in the game, he'll move over to shooting guard. It just gives them another option, another professional, another ball handler. We had been saying a lot through the first couple of months that the Cavs need to cut down on turnovers. Rubio has proven in the past he's a guy who will do that. You know, he takes care of the basketball. He's smart. One of the things that's very underrated that he does is deliver the ball exactly in the guys, his teammates' shooting spot, right when they're ready to shoot, right when they get open. He's just got great vision, great leadership skills. And I think as much as his presence will benefit everybody on the team a little bit, it will greatly benefit Darius Garland. I think Garland's game really improved last season, had that breakout season. You know, Darius Garland mostly responsible for that, but I think having Rubio around and showing him kind of the tricks of the trade, the little veteran tricks of the trade, really went a long way. And not just being in Darius's ear, but also just showing him out on the court, going against him in practice. I think that really benefited Darius Garland, helped his game rise another level. So, you know, based on last season, there's no end to the ways that Rubio could benefit a team that's already doing pretty well.
How do you think the small forward situation gets sorted out? Wade has been hurt, so Dean Wade has been hurt, so that hasn't factored into it. In spots, LeVert has been good, Okoro has been good, even Lamar Stevens has played well when they've put him in that lineup.
Yeah, you know, I think that's going to be an ongoing thing all the way to the trade deadline. Figure out who is most comfortable, because, you know, by the playoffs, you want that position to be as secure as possible. You know, barring any injuries, you want your guy there. This is our fifth starter, without question. And, you know, the Cavs had hoped to open the season that way with LeVert. He was a little out of sorts. He's still adjusting to the role of, you know, don't lose your scoring, but also facilitate. That's asking a lot for a guy who was kind of a scorer first, but has proven now to be a very good passer as well. So I think that, you know, look, they're going to have another month or so to figure that out, to figure out before the trade deadline. Do we need to bring in another guy that can be our concrete starter in that spot, or will somebody on the roster, you know, organically earn that role before the February trade deadline, or at the very least before the playoffs in April, so that we can feel confident in that position. You know, and I know the Cavs would love to add a wing shooter who could potentially fill that role. They're not feeling desperate to do that, but that's something that could come into play. Maybe a knockdown three-point shooter that they could fill into that spot, because it's gonna be a vital spot. You know, you talk about your four other big players, big names. That fifth spot's going to be very important once you get into the playoffs.
Other than, you know, potentially adding that type of piece, what do they need to get better at? What do the Cavs need to get better at to be, you know, among the quote unquote elite?
Well, I think experience will be a huge factor. Playing in meaningful games, which you're going to be doing all season, when you're facing the rest of the Eastern Conference with the Bucks and the Celtics. And I suspect that the Heat will get better. Obviously, the Nets have gotten their act together quite a bit. So playing in those games against those teams is really the ultimate experience for a team that's, has a younger core. Doing that will help a lot. As far as roster improvements, you can always get more size. You can always get more physical. I think their priority right now, is probably perimeter shooting. You always want that knockdown guy that is going to shoot 45% on threes. Those are things that they would like to address. They don't feel desperate to address them right now, but that's something to keep an eye on. Is maybe we'll get another backup for Jared Allen. Maybe we'll be able to go out and get a knockdown shooter, maybe another kind of scorer off the bench that's reliable. Because as good as they are and as deep as they are, you always have to account for injuries, especially as the season goes on. And you want to make sure you're covered in the event that those unfortunate bumps and bruises and stuff happen, especially toward the playoffs.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we continue talking about the state of the Cavs. Pretty good, as they're one of the top teams, not only in the Eastern Conference, but the NBA in the early going. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking the state of the Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. So, Sam, the Cavs have one of the top home records, all of basketball. What does that typically tell you about a team when they are that good at home?
Well, it means that they're obviously very comfortable at home, but the comfort level is kind of a result of the crowd feeling energized, and more than anything, playing at home impacts your shooting. You look at teams' shooting percentages on the road and at home, and it's always better at home. On top of that, and the Cavs have shot the ball very well at home, so that's really helped. Another area that's helped is they've taken care of the ball a lot better at home too. That usually isn't the case in the NBA. It doesn't really seem to matter, but they've been able to do that. But it's just, it's one of those things. Everywhere in the NBA, guys are more comfortable playing in their own gym they're familiar with, and you just shoot better in a place where you play 41 times a year as opposed to once or twice a year.
How deep is this roster? It seems like to J.B. Bickerstaff and the Cavs' credit, they've been banged up. Guys have missed time, and they haven't really missed a beat. It seems like when they need to plug somebody in, there's always somebody waiting to get minutes.
Yeah, that goes back to them playing well at home, too, because role players always play better at home as well. And they have a lot of quality role players, as you just mentioned. We saw at the beginning of the year, right? Lamar Stevens not playing at all, not getting in any games. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, he's your starting small forward. So, and he's produced in that role. So that goes a long way toward their depth. Kevin Love has had, his a couple of injury issues and all that at the beginning. But when he's healthy and he's in there, sometimes you forget about him, and then the Cavs bring him in, and he'll have, a really nice game and hurt the opponent. And they have a lot of guys that are like that. Like you said, Dean Wade, when healthy. Chetty went, a couple weeks ago without playing a couple games or, a lot less minutes than usual, comes back the next game and plays a key role. So that's a really nice thing to have is role players who, aren't just strictly role players and come in and filling minutes so that the starters can get a rest, but going in there and producing, and you never know who it's going to be. You truly don't. I mean, there are nights where Isaac Okoro, there are nights where it seems like Isaac Okoro is just out there running around, but there are other nights where he'll come in and make a difference with his energy. He'll put up some points. He'll make those scrappy plays. And that's really what the Cavs have done with their role players. Lamar Stevens, Chetty, Isaac Okoro, just to name a few, Dean Wade. Those are all guys who kind of play that scrappy, we will hurt you if you don't pay attention to us, and only pay attention to the four big names, that then you're going to be in trouble. So they've done a nice job of filling out the roster around those core 4 or 5 players.
What about Kevin Love? That's a guy that, a couple of years, last year he played really well. And this year, you look at in any given night, he could end up with 20 points or 11 rebounds. It seems like he kind of has adapted to, I'll do whatever it takes for us to win. Do you get that sense?
Absolutely. He forces nothing, and that's really a lot, especially a guy who's won a championship, paid his dues in this league. Sometimes you get to this stage of your career and it's like, look, I'm going to get up a few more shots, before my time runs out. But he is really very clearly, and this became very evident last season, he's all in, all in when it comes to whatever I have to do to get this team back to, they're already back to a competitive level, but get them back to a contending level and lead by example. And he's really done that. I think a lot of people, I'm not the only one who would say this, but people who just watch him play would say he's enjoying his time with the Cavs every bit as much as he did during the championship run and those, 4 trips to the finals, because there's just so much promise here and he fits in so well. And, remember, this was a key starter on the championship team. Now Kevin Love comes off the bench and seems to be enjoying every minute of it. And I'm still amazed when you watch him play, just the way that he goes and gets the ball off the glass. Still really, you consider, per minute, one of the top rebounders in the NBA. Just a great nose for the ball and, great positioning under the basket. So, has really been, when he's healthy, really has been still just a joy for the Cavs to have on the roster.
Let's look. I know we're going to look ahead, way ahead here. How tough of a matchup do you think the Cavs are in a playoff series? I mean, you typically look at it. You don't want to play a team that has a guy or two that can beat you late. They have that. You don't like guard play. They've got that. And they've got 2 big guys in Mobley and Allen who are really active.
On top of that, yeah, right. On top of that, they've played kind of playoff style defense all season. And that goes back to to Mobley and Allen, really kind of creating havoc at the basket for opposing shooters. So yeah, they're definitely not a team. Along with all the things that you mentioned, Dave, they're young, so they don't really know any better. They're going to go out with nothing to lose in a first round series. And they're obviously very talented, very athletic. They've got a very athletic group. All the things you don't want to see in a playoff series. I really think you look back to 2 years ago with the Atlanta Hawks, were a very similar group and went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They weren't supposed to get there that year, and the Cavs aren't supposed to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. But I think they're very similar to that Hawks team in that, they'll come out with all guns a-blazing. They'll be fired up. They'll be energetic. And, they've been really proving. I don't think they had a ton of critics, but I don't think they had a ton of people saying, yeah, they're going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the East this season, even with Donovan Mitchell. And they've really silenced those critics and skeptics. And I think that they're, would be on this very similar mission in the playoffs, especially when you consider there is no, the Celtics have played very well. The Bucks played very well, both, veteran dominated teams. The Nets obviously have tons of talent, tons of promise. But that said, there's been no clear cut, Golden State Warriors like 73-19 in the Eastern Conference. It's pretty wide open. So I think that just about anything could happen once the playoffs arrive.
Yeah, and let's put this out there. Their success at home, you want them to continue that because you want them to get one of those top 4 seeds where you have a first round or a first and a second round home playoff series. Does their style of play, you touched on that, they play half court. Does that help, do you think, just because you tend to learn every possession is valuable when you do that, and that's playoff basketball, without question.
Yeah, the game really slows down. It can slow down to a grind in the playoffs. First and foremost, the officials tend to let more go defensively in the playoffs. And like you said, every possession is really valuable in the playoffs. There's no throwaways there because a lot of times, games could come down to the wire, and you don't want something you did in the first quarter to come back and impact you and, cost you the season. So the fact that they're playing the style of basketball that they play during the regular season is playoff basketball should really benefit them when it means the most. Another team that I thought did that last year was the Grizzlies, and they finally got it back into the playoffs. And when they did, they used that to their advantage. And they're another young team that, had some lessons to go through out west. So I think that the Cavs are in a similar situation where we're going to try our best to play playoff style basketball during the regular season, predicated on defense. And, a lot of it includes trying to take better care of the basketball. Beyond that, though, I think that they've got it pretty well figured out because they do have 2 guards who can beat you. They have 2 big men who, if you don't pay attention to them on offense, they're going to beat you, but they'll really beat you on defense. And then, as we mentioned earlier, a whole cast of nice young role players that can beat you on the home court if you don't pay attention to them, obviously, as well as Kevin Love and Karis LeVert.
Before I let you go, I get the sense that there's the chemistry here is really good, and it everybody they bring in seems to fit in seamlessly. That's not the case around the NBA. Do you get that sense? And again, that's the sign of something that is really building towards where this city wants it to go.
Yeah, I think, first of all, you really credit Kobe Altman with a lot of that. The players that he's traded for, he could have probably made that trade that he made for Donovan Mitchell with any number of teams for a few all-star type players, but he wanted somebody with the personality very clearly in Donovan Mitchell who would fit alongside this current group. So, I think that Kobe Altman has done a fantastic job of finding the right personalities and fits that would mesh together. And really, you also have to give credit to JB Bickerstaff. I think he has the personality to manage, and that's a big part of an NBA coach. Everybody knows X's and O's at this level. A big part of that is getting the guys on the floor to have the personalities to bring those X's and O's to life. And, JB Bickerstaff has done a fantastic job of that. All the players really respect him, admire him, which, like you said, Dave, is not always the case with an NBA player and their coach. So I think that leadership from up top with Altman and Bickerstaff has just been fantastic. Really, I think last year Kobe Altman should have won NBA Executive of the Year, and I would hope at this point JB Bickerstaff is in the running for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and I would think with the way Donovan Mitchell has come in, and you could say the same thing again this year. It should be a lot of fun in this winter and spring leading up to what looks like it could be a lot of fun come NBA playoff time. Sam Amico, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff. Thanks, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks so much for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you check it out. All things Cavaliers as well as NBA-related material. Hoopswire.com, Sam Amico, always great stuff. That's going to do it for this special edition of Sports for CLE, the State of the Cavaliers. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.